It's been an incredibly long time since I last made a video on the film Coraline, but this is only because I got tired of it. Since then, a couple other channels have cropped up who have also made a bunch of Coraline theories, but I'm, not strictly speaking, done with this movie. For those who are unaware, back in 2015 to 2017, my channel grew fairly fast because I made an 8-part video series on the animated film known as Coraline due to the ridiculous levels of mystery it contains, but in all honesty, I only got around to making like 3 actual theories. The other 5 videos were just me answering your questions. Many of you even thought Coraline was my channel's main series. One of the theories was about the timeline of the ghost kids and how Coraline never truly escapes from the other world in the end. One was about how the other mother used to be a human, and the last one was about how the cat was working with the beldam. Making theories on this film has become increasingly difficult due to the other Coraline theorists who've now popped up, as ideas are growing increasingly thin, and rightfully so. It's not a very big movie. So, taking another objective look at this movie at your guys' violently constant requests, I'm returning to an idea I've had in mind since my first and second run-through of this film: how there can actually be more than one cat. Hello, I'm the Theorizer, and it'd probably be a good idea to watch my other Coraline videos before this one, or in the very least, parts 7 and 8. Don't really think of this video as part 9, it's sort of just another video. However, because of the way I have formatted my channel, the title will say part 9. So first off, I'm not the only one who's picked up on this idea about there being 2 cats. It's one of those ideas that I'm sure everybody ponders but drops because it's less important to the other theories. It's something you actually may suspect the first time you watch the film. After all, the massive difference is that the cat can talk in the other world. So is one cat one and the other another? If this is indeed the case, it would mean that all of my previous theories are correct to a degree. In fact, it would tie the 7th one to all the others, if you know what I mean, because it means that one cat is the beldam's son, who I claimed to be the blue boy, and the other is Wybie's great-grandfather. We will need tons of evidence to support a theory of 2 different cats, and don't fear, I have a bit, but first, the timeline I've prior instated crumbles down at the factor of something frivolous and near insignificant: the initial patent date of ice cream cones. So many of you, and this shocked me, have hit me with hard evidence regarding the boring blue boy and where he must sit in the timeline. Ice cream cones were created in 1896 by an Italian living in New York. In 1903, his patent was granted, so if the blue boy was the Grand Dame's son, born in the mid to late 1800s, then it would be incredibly unlikely for him to be so modernized like this with an ice cream cone. The boy actually looks like he's from the 1900s. He is not, however, the blonde ghost boy in the other world. So there we have it. A slightly shifted timeline, but 2 cats. And based sheerly on how my theories have flown up until this point, there's a good chance that one is the beldam's first victim, and one is the beldam's son. Though, we know now that her son is not likely the blue boy. There are so many possibilities to my theories, and I shall never settle on just one, as it would make me a poor theorizer. Let's look at the 2 cats and try to figure out their greater differences. There's the obvious big one, which is that the other cat, who I will call Vermin for now, has a voice, and the real one, who I'll call Mr. Lovat, does not have a voice. Also, Mr. Lovat shows great concern for Coraline and monitors her constantly, whereas Vermin sort of just leaves her to die in the beldam's web. But Vermin can traverse our world as well, further complicating things. Vermin, the other cat, is of course the one who was seen at the very end of the film, disappearing through a portal. Then the movie cuts to black with a dramatic thud. I've analyzed what this dramatic thud could mean many times, but I think it may just be revealing that this is the other cat, revealing that he's the one who Coraline let back through the portal. Now, Mr. Lovat and Vermin both exist in the real world, which explains the cat's approval as Coraline threw the key down the well. A well we know at this point to be the other world's main portal. This has been a tough point of my other videos because only a few minutes before she does this, we see the cat trying to stop Coraline from getting rid of the key, but it finally makes sense. That is Mr. Lovat, the real cat, and he's still back in the house where Coraline left him. Vermin is the one who witnessed the key go down. He's the one who smiled at it. He's the one who was pulled back to the other world by his mother, the Beldam, at the very end of the film, revealing their plan and their continued existence. Vermin is the only one we see teleporting. Mr. Lovat never does this. What's even weirder, however, is that something complicates all of this even further. When we look at the blue boy painting in the other world, his eyes bear a striking resemblance to that of the cat. The exact same shade of blue with a rather large black dot in the center. Even the mouth looks all weird, almost like he has sharpened teeth and an elongated tongue. Yet, Vermin, the other cat, has the voice that I claimed Mr. Lovat would have. It's like they're reversed. Why? Well, it means that Vermin is putting on this fake voice to mimic the spirit of Mr. Lovat. All of this weird timing also means something else, however, that the blue boy cannot possibly be Vermin, the Beldam's son. This whole chain of missing children must have begun in the early to mid 1900s. The blue boy must have been her first victim, I'm sure of it, but please don't confuse what I mean by that. Her first victim was the blue boy, but her first attempt at succeeding was Mr. Lovat when he was a child. But the first one she actually succeeded at luring and killing was the blue boy. It's why she and Vermin framed him on their wall. It's their crowning achievement. The boy that saved them from a loss of magic, that saved them from their deaths. He's a symbol of the other world. The first thing you see when you get there is that the sad blue boy has been made happy, and he's also got even more scoops of ice cream than he had before. And as the world progresses, he goes from happy mode into spider mode. His soul is the original savior of Vermin, his mother, and their world. So where is his ghost then? Well, quite simply, it's gone. The Beldam was still learning her method of kidnapping and manipulation, and of course, they were desperate for life after Mr. Lovat escaped. They didn't keep Blue. They needed all that soul power to sustain themselves. The soul was completely destroyed along with the eyes. Are you following me? Basically what I'm saying is that the other cat, known to us only as Vermin, is the Beldam's son. The real cat is Wybe's great-grandfather, the first person the Beldam went after but failed at. And finally, the boring blue boy in the framed picture is the Beldam's first true victim, the first one she succeeded at ripping the soul power from. One might ask why Vermin tore out his mother's eyes when Coraline threw him at her, and well, isn't it obvious? He's letting Coraline escape so that they can work the system all over again. The Beldam can just sew her eyes back on. It's clearly not a difficult task. It's just like how they discuss the Beldam's hatred for cats. It's all a trick. She's trying to keep out Mr. Lovat, not her son. Her son is not really a cat. And when Vermin gets into the real world at the end, he assures that Mr. Lovat stays in the Pink Palace, while he watches Coraline return the key to the Grand Dame herself via the well. And once ready, he returns home through a quick portal created by his mother. Movie ends, story doesn't. Coraline's so dead. The Beldam and Vermin spy on Coraline too. That's quite clearly how Vermin knew that she called Mr. Lovat a wusspuss. Vermin feeding Coraline the information about the other world is an attempt to prove his goodness to her, but the fact that he knows all of this to begin with is something to question. Even his little statement about asking how she tastes is a little dark, and honestly is something we should be questioning. This all leaves question. Which cat led Coraline to that mirror in that scene? Well, obviously it was Vermin luring her back. Mr. Lovat would never do that, as he's the one trying to protect her and her alone. Vermin's also the one who probably put the parents' doll under the bed. After all, he is the one who showed Coraline where it was. And for those of you wondering, the reason he doesn't have button eyes is because he doesn't need them. First of all, he has to convince Coraline that he's Mr. Lovat. But second of all, remember what I said in previous videos. The beldam used her own eyes to initially power the world. Vermin was who she was protecting at all costs. Her son. His eyes need not to be given up. The big final question about this is then, why did Vermin give Coraline the final ghost eye? Why would he need to further convince her at this point? They practically had Coraline in their grasp, but something must have changed, and I think I may know what. Coraline has a very tough spirit, and the eyes need to be sewn into her willingly, as the beldam states. And the only way to do that is to break her spirit and trick her. The beldam opened up the little door during the climax, knowing full well what Coraline was going to do. Obviously. Who wouldn't see that coming? Isn't the beldam a manipulative genius? Yes, she is. She didn't even close it when she was done taunting Coraline. She just left it open because they didn't need to trap her. They needed to break her spirit. And the rest of their plan is something we don't know about because the movie unfortunately ends. But I have some ideas, though those are for a later video, which I probably will eventually make. If you want to know why I think these two cats are the son and Mr. Lovat, watch my older theories, but I do know that they are at least two different characters. There are two cats. One is sarcastic, and one has a deep concern for Coraline. I suppose there's also a chance that Vermin could have been someone in the other world even longer than the beldam. Perhaps an original inhabitant, an alien of sorts. No, let's stick to this for now. Anyways, I have more ideas than just the stuff about the cat, though. I guess I'll share those right now, too. One of my ideas is about the other world and how the magic slowly rots away. When Coraline first gets there, if you look out the kitchen window, the moon is very thin. It's recently recovered from being a new moon and is in the first phase. In other words, the other world's news cycle has just been activated as Coraline's gotten there. The second time Coraline gets there, the moon is about half full when you look out the window. However, when she goes outside, it's a massive and popping full ball in the sky. This is a fake moon that's just sitting there in the garden, obviously. This is all further proof that only the things in the other house are real. The moon later becomes full and then is eclipsed with a button. The moon is like a timer of the other world's magic. This is something very cool I picked up on, and it basically shows us why the beldam was as pushy and abrupt as she was. She was on a magical time limit that she set for herself. Another idea I have is regarding the bugs seen on the flowery wallpaper. I do believe they are scarabs. Doing a quick search regarding the symbolism of scarabs, we find that they symbolize an infinite system of rebirth and regeneration, as they do some really gross things to constantly sustain themselves. It's a relatively similar thing to what the beldam does, turning old stuff into new stuff and recycling dead children. She feeds life into things and feeds on it herself, constantly regenerating her body. Boom! On to the next thing I noticed. I do believe that something perhaps scientific relates to the other world, and maybe even extra-dimensional. Like the other world being a place trapped in time, or rather a location accessible through the fourth dimension, like a pocket of time. What I'm trying to say is, maybe the other world is actually the past or future, and the portal is a dimensional gateway, but I don't know where I'd fully take this idea. I mean, it's like the whole Pink Palace is segregated from existence, what with its swirly clouds at times, but I'll hold off on this for now. Finally, there's a lot of Native American symbolism that I never noticed before in this film. There's a native chief's gilded head just sitting there on the other father's music studio, and there are deer antlers on the wall. Ashland, Oregon has a lot of history with natives, but if I ever really get into that, it will be during a video of its own. So yeah, while I do love this film, I've gotten a bit tired of it over the past several months because now lots of people are theorizing on it and it's beginning to feel less unique than when I started it. However, I still like doing it to an extent. I always kind of will because it's wickedly mysterious. Expect probably something else in the coming months, as I've just opened a bunch of new cans of worms with this video, so hooray! Until then, I am the Theorizer.